or a racial aspect, but there's diversity in terms of how devoted we were or are in terms of growing up in Islam. And also, what is that devotion based on? Is it based on culture, or is it based on sound knowledge? And many of you, especially the younger brothers, are at an age where you can you have that self-awareness, right? Where you can answer this question. You can disconnect from your current situation and say, hey, how did I do? What was Islam? What role did it play in my life growing up? You're able to do this. But from a purely historical observation, if we look at the youth during the time of the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which was the most important, make no mistake about it, there has never been any period more important than the period of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his companions. Because what they did set the foundation. It set the foundation for the future generations to come. And it's interesting that the Prophet ﷺ, he not only interacted with the young people, but he gave them power, he gave them authority, he gave them responsibilities that will have to last, that will have to set the foundation for the future generations to come. So what does he do? He puts them in charge of spreading the message of Islam, taking Islam to new people. And once they embrace Islam, he gives them the responsibility of teaching and helping people to take the next steps in Islam. And also in terms of preservation of Islam. And we have these masahif, right, all over here that sometimes we don't give it and we treat it like any other book. We treat it like any other book. The Prophet ﷺ, he didn't need a mushaf. He didn't need a mushaf. He said that he would recite Quran with Jibril once a year. Once a year, and towards the end of his life, 2 times, Jibril would come and go over the Quran with him. So he didn't need it, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He didn't need the mushaf. But he ordered that it be recorded. He commanded the Sahaba to record the Quran. And most of those people that he commanded to do that were who? Young people. 14, 15. He gave them this responsibility. He gave them this responsibility. And alhamdulillah, brothers, we have, as I mentioned, the 2 shuyukh who, as I mentioned, since I've known them, they have been studying Islam, serving Islam. And I'm not saying this, Allah knows, them better, of course, but this is our connection, this is our relationship. And alhamdulillah, being in their company has benefited me, and to this day I reach out to them, even though they're 10 years younger than me. I call them and listen, I have this issue, what do you think? Advise me, guide me, issues with marriage, any issue I'm dealing with, I'll run it past them. I talk with them about it. So, inshallah, they're going to share a few points, and we'll start with Sheikh Abdullah Amin, and he'll share some points concerning the challenges of growing up in Islam. فيتفضل يا شيخنا بارك الله فيكم ويحفظكم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So growing up as a Muslim, I had a little different path than a lot of African American youth. My father, alhamdulillah, was someone who studied the religion of Islam, and studying and learning was something of importance to him. So he wanted to instill this learning experience in his children. An example that is given to me by one of my uncles, my father's closest friends, is my father would have a stick, and I was like 2 years old. I mean, of course, I don't remember. tell me to sit down, ijlis, iqra, sit down and read, right? So he would say to my father, are you crazy or something? He's not going to understand what you're talking about, right? What's wrong with you? Why are you talking to him that crazy talk, Arabic talk? He's not going to understand what you're talking about. And then my father would tell him he understands more than you think. He understands more than you think. Fast forward, my father, with this zeal and intention to instill the love of learning Islam in his children, he took us overseas to learn the Quran. And alhamdulillah, we memorized the Quran at a young age. Was bringing us back to the US. A lot of you can imagine living in a Muslim country, growing up, and a lot of you have probably witnessed this or lived this. Coming back or coming to the US at a young age, 11, 12 years old, and all of the things that you're exposed to in the US, and what the children are getting into, as opposed to what you, growing up in a Muslim country, or conservative Muslim country, are used to getting into. So what you're used to getting into in a Muslim country is, the mischief that you would call mischief is pretty much nothing. Child's play compared to the mischief that people are getting into here in the US. So again, the challenges of being a Muslim, you see all the people around you that are your age and are Muslim, and their parents are not as keen on you, their parents are not as keen on them practicing Islam as your parents are. So what ends up happening, or what begins to happen, is you build a certain animosity, a certain enmity towards your parents. Because you're like, all these other people were the same age and their parents are letting them do A, B, C, and D. But my parents, they want me to just go to the masjid. My parents, they want me to just read Quran. My parents, they want me to just teach other people Quran. Talk about Quran and Sunnah. Why can't I hang out with my friends? Right? Why can't I go to the movies? Why are they so much better than I am? Why am I being confined? Right? Why can't I go to a basketball tournament? Right? Why can't I hang out with girls and talk to girls? Right? Why can't I go to a public school and do what everybody else is doing at a public school? Right? So you start to build up a certain enmity towards your parents. Right? And especially if your parents are not necessarily understanding you. They don't know exactly what's going on with you. Right? So they're like, you need to be in the masjid. You need to be doing this because they want to protect you from the shaitan, and they know the tricks of the shaitan. But you're thinking, oh, they're stopping me from, living my life the way everybody else is living their lives. Right? So that's one thing. Another thing is outside influence, where there are people that feel jealous towards who you are as a Muslim and what your parents are trying to do with you as a Muslim. So they get in your ear and they tell you like, well, why doesn't your father let you do this? Well, why is your father stopping you from doing that? Well, why can't you hang out? So what that does is that kind of causes separation between you and your parents and those who actually love you. So that's a challenge. And that's something that I personally had to deal with, right? Where there was something in my heart against my parents where I felt that, they don't want the best for me, right? And that happens with a lot of the youth. So as a challenge, there's many things that the youth deal with, trying to find their identity as a Muslim. I don't want to go too much more. Go to the next inshallah.
And subhanAllah, it's a process of going through that and dealing with that and having to overcome that. For barakallahu feekum, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase you and give you that strength that you need, mashallah, to continue to grow, inshallah ta'ala, barakallahu feekum. now we have Abu Bakr Amin. He will talk to us about the opportunities. Yes, there were these challenges that Abdullah mentioned, Sheikh Abdullah mentioned, but also there were opportunities that Sheikh Abu Bakr Allah Yafadahu is going to talk to us about. فليتفضل يا شيخ.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. So as the Sheikh mentioned, my name is Abu Bakr Amin, and Abdullah is my younger brother, although he might look older than me and better than me, but you know, my younger brother. And the challenges that he went through, we went through them together. So all the challenges that he's talking about, I've experienced those as well. And subhanAllah, with those challenges, it was kind of like a fight. You know, like a push and pull between us and our parents. And one major thing that we got out of that push and pull is that my parents instilled in us a foundation and an understanding of Islam. So something that was a foundation that we can build on. So for example, when we went to study at the Islamic University in Medina, and when we started to learn hadith and stuff like that, and we started to learn so many aspects of Islam, it was easy because we've already memorized the Quran. So we had an advantage on a lot of other people because we've already memorized. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us to excel maybe a little bit faster than others because my parents, they pushed us when we were younger. In addition to that, I've come back to America since 2007, and I went to school and I graduated from the University of Michigan with an engineering degree, and now I've been working for Ford for the past 5 years. And alhamdulillah, I've basically been working in the world with non-Muslims. And because of the foundation that my parents have given me, because of the hard work that they put into me, I feel that I have an advantage on a lot of the non-Muslims in dealing with these issues in the corporate world, these issues in my job, and these issues in dealing with people in general. So I feel like I excel. When I talk to management, when I talk to the people that are in management, they tell me that they see things in me that they don't see in everyone else. But I think that the reason that they see those things is because there's some basics that I've learned in Islam. In addition to that, when I was in school and I was taking a philosophy class, I was taking classes in physics and classes that challenged my belief. SubhanAllah, I found a lot of Muslim students, their beliefs started to shake. They started to think, man, does it really make sense that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one? Or does it really make sense that the Prophet ﷺ came with this message, so on and so forth? But subhanAllah, every time they brought these things that were meant to shake our religion, to me it made me stronger. It made me believe more. It made me, be more convicted in what I had, because I understood, because I saw the blatant falsehood in what they were pushing. When I took a philosophy class, for example, I had a couple of friends of mine who, you know, were in the class with me, Muslims. And they would come to me every now and again, and they would say, wow, like, this kind of makes sense to me. You know, something Plato is saying, for example, it makes 100% sense to me. But it doesn't sit right with what we believe in Islam. And then when I explained it to them, they were like, wow, that's 100% true. I see that now, and they can see that a lot of the things that, I'm not saying everything in philosophy is wrong, but a lot of the things that go against Islam, it's easily provable that it's completely wrong. So this foundation, I would say, has helped me in battling the difficulties that come with dealing with non-Muslims and dealing with the difficulties in this American society. So when we're raising our youth as parents, We have to give them the tools to fight these issues in the world. And as young people, when our parents are raising us, we have to remember that they're only doing this because they love us. They're only pushing us to learn these things and to go to the masjid and so on and so forth because they have this love for us. And I think that sort of gives the big picture. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta.
Wow, alhamdulillah. You guys can see why, even though I'm a little older than these brothers, I come to them. Mashallah, they have this foundation. They have the experience, in a sense, in that environment of knowledge and in that environment of trying to be devoted to Islam in what we might say is a hostile environment. And as they mentioned, it's not always from the non-Muslims. Sometimes it's from other Muslims themselves. And I remember their father telling me certain things. I took my sons back. My sons are trying to teach them Quran, and they're trying to teach my sons this, and this. And he would mention that to me. So alhamdulillah. So remaining, we want to remain in Islam. There's challenges, there's opportunities, but we want to remain in Islam. As the Prophet ﷺ, he's mentioned that you can be an arm's length between you and paradise. But then what is written overcomes, and you start to do the actions of the people of the hellfire. فَيَدْخُلُهَا, and he enters the hellfire. And vice versa. There can be someone who is doing the actions of the people of hell. And maybe we as Muslims are, that brother Abdullah, he's gone. That sister, she's out of it. But then what is written overtakes them, and they start to do the deeds of the people of Jannah, and they enter Jannah. So we ask and we want husnul khatimah, inshallah ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us with a good end. Ameen. So why is remaining a Muslim? As they mentioned, you might have some doubts, right? So why is it important to remain a Muslim? Anyone? Jannah. It's very big. The ultimate goal, the end, right? We want Jannah. We want paradise. And also we have to consider, brothers and sisters, that all of the prophets and messengers, in spite of what we hear about them, they were all Muslims. All of them. Jesus, peace be upon him, Musa, peace be upon him, all of the Anbiya were Rusul, were Muslims. Maybe the Sharia changed, the rules, the regulations, but the beliefs in Allah, the beliefs in revelation, the beliefs in, they were all Muslims. And subhanAllah, today, here in Louisville, alhamdulillah, I was blessed to go and visit the Muhammad Ali Center. And the place is my wife tells me, if we go at this time, it's going to be full. I'm scratching my head, full. I'm under, who's going to go there? Right? But you go there, and we went a little early, alhamdulillah, but then it got crowded. And it wasn't just the African American people there. It was all kinds of people. All kinds of people there just absorbing what they were seeing. But the history, the example of this individual, rahmatullahi alayhi. And this is the most important sports icon in modern history. Right? So subhanAllah. So two things, brothers and sisters, that we can do that can help us, that we can implement immediately. As the brothers mentioned, the challenges are non-stop. There was always, it was my parents, it was my classmates, it was my people in the there was always something going on. And I'm sure we talk, so there's always some type of challenge. So there's some things, brothers, that we can do immediately that will help us to remain Muslims and be able to deal with the different challenges that we come across. And sometimes we might not have the knowledge. There was even times when Prophet Muhammad he would say, I don't know. He wouldn't give an answer. He wouldn't give a response because he didn't have one. And there was imams when they were asked about questions, people would travel to see them. They would say, I don't know. Okay, Sheikh, I came hundreds of miles to see you. I'm going to go back to my people. What do you want me to tell my people? You're going to tell your people that Imam Malik doesn't know. That's what you're going to tell them. Because we might not have the answer immediately on the but. So how do we overcome? How do we survive those challenging moments? And of course, the first thing is seeking knowledge. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Only those fear Allah from amongst His servants who have knowledge. Right? How can you... And that's relevant to what type of knowledge? What type of knowledge? You, as a young person, you play a role in that. You play a role in that. Something that your parents, if they migrated, like my parents, they might think you're okay. He's good. I brought him here to get a better life. Things are better for him. He can have all these opportunities that I didn't have. So that's their perspective. So you have a role to play in that and helping them to understand some of the things that you're going through. Sometimes when I would inform my mother, rahmatullahi alayha, about some of the things I went through, she was surprised. I didn't know this. I didn't know that this was the case with you. I didn't know that you felt that way. I didn't understand that. Right? So you play a role in determining what type of knowledge you need. Your social circles. You know your social circles best. Right? So you have to, you play a role in that. And there's a hadith, طالب العلم فريضة على كل مسلم. Seeking knowledge is obligatory upon every Muslim. Every Muslim. And earlier we were talking with some of the brothers from Al-Maghrib, and he was saying how, Al-Maghrib has the oldest university that was established by whom? By a woman. May Allah have mercy on her. Right? So this is the knowledge. How can we desire, brothers and sisters, to interact with Allah if we don't know Him? How can we want to interact with Him, want a relationship with Him, if we don't know Him? If we don't know what He wants from us? Earlier too, a brother mentioned we were talking and he mentioned Apple, the brand. He mentioned Apple, right? And we all know the product immediately, right? There's a certain knowledge we have about that product and the task that it can perform. So we desire, right? We desire these products. We desire this brand, right? We understand, we have knowledge of athletes, of people that we have a certain awe of. We understand who they are. We have knowledge of them. The second thing, brothers and sisters, is that we have to remember Allah. We have to remember Allah, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu udhkurullaha dhikran kathira. O you who have believed, remember and mention Allah with a plentiful dhikran kathira. And dhikr, the shayukha, how many times dhikr, and it's different, derivatives, how many times does it come up in the Quran? Allah, dhikr, all the different derivatives of that word repeated over and over throughout the whole entire Quran. So brothers, we're saying we believe in Allah, right? How, and His messenger. So we have to remember Him with our hearts. We have to remember Him with our hearts and with our tongues and with our limbs. And we should never There should never be a moment that we're not remembering Allah. As the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned, مَا مِنْ سَاعَةٍ تَمُرُّ بِإِبْنِ آدَمَ لَا يَذْكُرُ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى فِيهَا إِلَّا تَحَسَّرَ عَلَيْهَا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. He said there is not an hour that passes the son of Adam which he doesn't remember Allah, that he will regret that hour when. Right? Sometimes we regret, I didn't utilize my time correctly. Oh, inshallah, tomorrow I'll get that done. Tomorrow I'll do it. Tomorrow, right? There's no tomorrow. We can't, right? That's it. So we will regret it on the day of judgment. And brothers and sisters, remembering Allah is not something that it disturbs our routine, that disturbs what we do throughout our daily lives. No, we remember Allah when we're doing those things in our daily lives. And we know that it sounds elemental, it sounds like, vigor. Yeah, are you mentioning Allah when you get dressed? Are you mentioning Him when you wake up? Are you mentioning Him when you get into your car? Are you Bismillah? Do you say, are we remembering and mentioning Him as we were taught and instructed by the Prophet ﷺ? Right? As the brothers mentioned, the challenges are everywhere. The obstacles are all around us, inside the masjid, outside the masjid. And we might not have sufficient information. Sometimes myself, I get asked, Sheikh, this is serious, what do we do, right? So, but if we remember Allah, we're in a habit, right? I use that word loosely, right? Because it's not a habit, it's ibadah. If we remember Him often, what does He say? فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ. If you remember me, I'll remember you. I'll remember you. Right? So we need to constantly, we have to teach our kids to remember Allah. Sit with them. Sit with them. Don't wait until they're 15. Sit with them now. And have them just sit with you and hear you remembering and mentioning Allah. Especially if they're going out into the general society in the morning. And these are the type of choices that we as parents have to make. Right? We have to decide what's more important. My child's spiritual well-being, or I'm just gonna, I'm doing what he has everything, he has all the things that he needs, he should be okay. And then what happens? 15 years later, you bring him to the masjid and you want the imam, you want the sheikh to perform some type of, I don't know what, miracle. Right? And ahlan wa sahlan. My brothers, right? We want them here at the masjid. We want to help them. We want to encourage them. Right? But it's like anything else. We have to start early. We have to be consistent. We have to be on top of these types of things. And these different mentionings and remembrances that we do, they remind us of the most important things. Like Jannah, like Allah, like the Messenger, like Jahannam, the life in the grave. Today we were on the way to grab something to eat, and we happened to pass the cemetery, so we went inside. That's where we wound up. We wound up. Muhammad Ali himself, he said, Allah gave me this illness to show me that I'm not number one, that He's number one, and that I'm going to return to Him. So as you get older, as you begin to exercise, brothers and sisters, your ability on how you respond to various challenges and various things that come up, your responsibility is also going to grow. Your responsibility is also going to grow. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has helped us. He has given us certain tools that can help us to meet that responsibility. Like self-awareness, right? Analyzing yourself. Taking some moments to look at yourself and see what's going on with you. And I remember not too long ago, I came across something like this. This man, he said that he did a study for about 10 years of millionaires. And he said that the one interesting habit that they all had, all of them, he said, is that they would sit every morning, and they would think about different aspects, important aspects of their lives for about 15 minutes. This is what they would do. And how many of us are doing that? And we have the example from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu. He would go pray Fajr and he would sit in the masjid until the sun came up. If we know a brother does that nowadays, we might make fun of the brother. He doesn't have a job. He doesn't do nothing. He just sits in the masjid all day. Right? No. He would sit and prioritize before he went out and dealt with the society. Right? And even we know when he used to leave the house, he would make a dua. Right? Oh, save me not only from being misguided, but from misguiding. Save me from oppression, but also save me from oppressing. Save me from ignorance, and save me from treating someone ignorantly. This is what he would say when he would leave his home. Right? So he would prepare himself mentally, spiritually, to deal with the different challenges that he was going to do. And he would do the same exact thing once the evening came in. Because the night is different. The night, things change at night. It's a different atmosphere, a different environment, different spiritual things going on at night. So he would do the exact same thing at night. Also, brothers and sisters, we have an imagination that we can look beyond our present reality. We have a conscience. All of us, Muslim, non-Muslim, we have a basic idea of right and wrong. Certain things I tell a non-Muslim about Islam, they agree. Yeah, that's true. It makes sense. It's natural. It's fitrah. And also, brothers and sisters, we have an independent will. Right? We can choose based on these other gifts. We can choose from our own path, free from other influences. And we know that we cannot get into Jannah by saying, I was born Muslim. That's not enough. That's not sufficient. You're not going to get into Jannah because of your parents being Muslim or your country being Muslim. That's not what's going to get you into Jannah. So if we embrace, brothers and sisters, this responsibility, we can also gain a certain level of maturity. Right? We begin to grow. We begin to be more mature. So we have to ask ourselves our level of maturity. Right? Is it all about you made me. It's my parents. It's the environment. It's my friends. It's right, and that's something that, subhanAllah, sometimes, when I became Muslim in high school, at junior year, right, and nobody anticipated that. People, right, but alhamdulillah, I embraced Islam. Several of my friends embraced Islam. My family embraced Islam. And we hear many stories like this, where one person becomes Muslim. Abu Bakr, he becomes Muslim, and who becomes Muslims? Who else became Muslim through Abu Bakr? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Uthman, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Who else? Khabbab. The other more, for example, most of the 10 that were promised Jannah, they embraced Islam at the hands of Abu Bakr, right? And Prophet Muhammad taught, he went to Abu Bakr, and that was the result, right? So maybe, right, in your social circle, you see someone who is, he has an influence, invite her to Islam. And let her invite her friends, and he'll invite his friends, and you'll get the ajr. Imagine the brother that gave me shahada, that invited me to Islam, the sister that gave my mother those pamphlets, Allah knows best what they're doing. Allah knows best what they're doing. Inshallah, they're still firm upon their deen. But anything that I do, my children do, anyone that's Muslim in my family, they receive the hasanat for it. They receive a portion of that reward. Right, so we have to be careful, right, with being in that maturity state where we're constantly, looking at something else as being the issue or being the problem. And this will cause us to grow in maturity and become independent, right, where now you embrace, it's me. What can I do? What can I learn? What knowledge can I seek? Right, how can I be involved? And ultimately, you want the we. You want to be a part of the community. You want to move as a pack, as a community. There's strength in numbers, right? But so we can climb those different levels of maturity. I wanted to end it a little early, brothers and sisters, so we can leave some room for questions and answers. So I'll just mention a few more points. And then we'll leave that open for that. And then, brothers and sisters, this responsibility, this maturity is going to impact how centered we are, how balanced we are as individuals, in terms of our guidance, in terms of the wisdom, in terms of power and being capable, right? It takes some strength. It takes some strength to say, I'm Muslim. I don't do that. Right? This is my religion. This is serious to me. I don't play with that. You want to play? We can play. We can talk. We can play football. But wait, this is my deen. This is my religion. I wouldn't make fun of your religion. I wouldn't do that to you, brother. I wouldn't poke fun of you. So why respect my religion? It takes some power, right? You have to have a backbone. You have to be strong. So brothers and sisters, with knowledge and with the remembrance of Allah, it will help us to embrace these responsibilities and grow in terms of our maturity and dealing with these different responsibilities and challenges that we have. And ultimately, inshallah, it will help us to be balanced, and where we can adapt and deal with different situations, as the brothers mentioned. Being here, and we're going to come across all kinds of things, all types of Muslims. I used to give a Muslim salam at the job, brother, salam alaikum. Alaikum salam. Salam, he didn't like it. He didn't like it. Finally, he said, look, man, don't give me salams. Don't give me salams. I didn't grow up as a Muslim. Yeah, my name is such and such, but I didn't grow up, I don't know nothing about Islam, so, don't say that to me. I was a new Muslim. I knew, right? We're going to come across all types of challenges. Today, I'm not judging, I'm not trying. A sister, I didn't know she was Muslim. Right? She didn't look, but she gave salams. Right? You're not covering. I wouldn't be that. No, right? She gave me salams. Alhamdulillah, that's something, that's a step. Right? So people from that are maybe not clear on what we're going to come across all types of people, all types of persuasions, all types of ideas, right? And so we need the knowledge, but we also need to remember and mention Allah as often as possible and do as much khair as we possibly can. So subhanallah wa bihamdika wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. We'll stop there as far as the presentation.